You've probably been told since your first orientation that human resources is the safe harbor of the company, a neutral ground where you can take your grievances, your fears, and your interpersonal conflicts without fear of retribution. You were taught that they are the moral compass of the organization, there to ensure fairness, advocate for employee well-being, and uphold the company values printed on those glossy posters in the break room. But as you sit in your car on a Sunday evening, dreading the conversation you have scheduled with an HR representative tomorrow morning, you feel a knot in your stomach that suggests otherwise. You've been dealing with a manager who undermines you, or a colleague who takes credit for your work, and you think that by opening a file, you are initiating a process of justice. You believe that because you are right, the system will protect you. But the truth is, HR is not a court of law, and they are certainly not your attorney. In fact, the most dangerous mistake you can make in your career is confusing human resources with human advocacy. They are a specialized branch of risk management designed to insulate the company from you, not to save you from the company. You aren't being paranoid. You are simply witnessing the cold, mechanical reality of corporate preservation. You are walking into that office thinking you're the plaintiff, but in the eyes of the person across the desk, you are often the liability that needs to be mitigated. Think about the atmosphere when you actually enter that HR office. It's designed to be disarming. The soft lighting, the box of tissues on the table, the sympathetic nodding of the representative. They ask you to tell your story and speak your truth. And because you are stressed and feeling vulnerable, you start to spill everything. You tell them about your mental health, your frustrations with the leadership, and your suspicion that the department is headed in the wrong direction. You think you're venting to a confidant, but every word you utter is being mentally categorized into a risk assessment framework. This is where the frustration starts to build. You wait weeks for an update, only to find that the investigation resulted in a vague suggestion for better communication, or, worse, a sudden shift in how your own performance is being monitored. You feel confused and betrayed. You thought they were there to fix the problem, but you're starting to realize that to them, you are the problem because you are the one creating the paperwork. This is the part nobody tells you. HR doesn't exist to eliminate toxic behavior. They exist to ensure that toxic behavior doesn't result in a lawsuit. If a manager is a high performer who brings in millions but creates a difficult environment, HR isn't going to fire them because you're unhappy. They are going to find a way to make you quiet or make you leave, because that is the most cost-effective way to protect the organization's interests. The hidden truth that keeps the corporate machine running is the institutional immunity protocol. You think the company cares about its culture, but culture is just the brand name they give to their survival instincts. HR is the immune system of that institution. When you bring a complaint, the immune system doesn't ask, "Is this fair?" It asks, "Is this a threat to the organism?" If your complaint involves a senior leader or a vital revenue generator, the system will automatically begin to encapsulate you. They will document every minor mistake you make from that moment forward, not because they hate you, but because they need to build a defensive file in case you decide to sue. They are creating a narrative of performance issues to counter your narrative of harassment or unfairness. This is the uncomfortable reality. The moment you go to HR, you have officially entered an adversarial relationship, even if the person smiling at you is offering you a cup of water. You are no longer an employee. You are a potential legal line item. Deep office politics is never about what is written in the employee handbook. It is about the invisible hierarchy of utility. Decisions about who stays and who goes aren't made based on who is right, but on who is more useful to the people at the top. HR reports to the CEO or the CFO, not to the employees. Their bonuses, their promotions, and their job security are tied to how well they keep the company out of court and how efficiently they can execute layoffs or restructures without damaging the brand. When you go to them with a problem, you are essentially asking the company's security guard to arrest the homeowner. It doesn't happen. The social dynamics at play are rooted in power preservation. HR professionals are often excluded from the real inner circle of executive power, which makes them even more desperate to prove their loyalty to the leadership. They will sacrifice a mid-level manager or a junior staffer in a heartbeat if it means they can demonstrate their ability to handle a situation quietly and effectively. You are looking for empathy in a department built on spreadsheets and liability insurance. And this is where most people get stuck. They lead with their emotions. They go to HR when they are at their breaking point, crying or angry, thinking that the intensity of their feelings will prove the validity of their case. But in the cold logic of risk management, emotionality is seen as instability. If you are crying in the HR office, you are being flagged as unpredictable. The reality shift you need to make is realizing that the only language HR respects is the language of evidence and compliance. Your current approach, hoping for a human connection, is failing you because you are bringing a knife to a gunfight. You have to reframe your understanding. You are not a victim seeking help. You are a stakeholder presenting a business case for the removal of a risk. If you can't prove that the toxic manager is costing the company money, violating a specific state law, or creating an undeniable breach of contract, HR has no reason to act. They aren't there to make you feel better. They are there to make sure the company stays safe. Yes, the subtle solutions to navigating this environment start with the paper trail of non-emotion. You don't go to HR to talk. You go to HR to file. Before you even set foot in their office, you should have a documented log of dates, times, witnesses, and specific violations of the company's own written policies. You don't use words like, I feel, or it seems. You use words like, this violated Section 4 of the conduct policy, or this creates a hostile work environment as defined by our compliance training. You are essentially doing their job for them, but you're doing it in a way that makes it impossible for them to ignore you without creating a liability for themselves. You are signaling that you know the rules better than they do. This changes the perception of you from a disgruntled employee to an informed threat. HR is much more likely to help you if they realize that ignoring you is more dangerous than helping you. Strategic communication is your shield. When you have meetings with HR, you should always follow up with an email summarizing exactly what was discussed. Per our conversation today, I have reported the following incidents. This creates a time-stamped record that they cannot later claim never happened. You are building your own institutional memory. You also have to manage your external visibility. HR protects people who are hard to erase. If you are deeply connected to clients, well-liked by other departments, and seen as a high-value asset by people outside your direct chain of command, HR will be much more hesitant to participate in your removal. They know that firing a popular, high-value person creates a PR risk within the company. Your relationships are your insurance policy. The more people who would ask, what happened to them? If you were suddenly gone, the safer you are. The part nobody tells you is that HR's greatest tool is the slow walk. They will tell you they are looking into it for months, hoping that you will either get frustrated and quit or that the problem will somehow resolve itself. They are waiting for your emotional half-life to expire. They know that most people can only stay angry for about 90 days. If they can stretch the process out beyond that, they win. To counter this, you have to maintain a cold persistence. You check in every week. You ask for specific timelines. You don't let the fire go out. You have to be the squeaky wheel that refuses to be greased with platitudes. You have to make it clear that you aren't going away and you aren't going to suck it up. When they realize you are prepared for a long-term siege, they will often look for a lateral solution, moving you to a different team, offering you a severance, or finally disciplining the person you reported, just to get you off their desk. But you also have to be realistic about the end game. In many cases, once you have engaged HR in a serious conflict, your time at that company has a shelf life. Even if you win, you are now the person who went to HR. You are a known quantity. You are someone who knows where the bodies are buried. This is why smart people use HR as a leverage point for their exit strategy. They don't go to HR to save their job. They go to HR to negotiate the terms of their departure. They use the evidence they've gathered to secure a better severance package or a glowing reference. They realize that this relationship with the company is over, and they are now in the contract termination phase. This is the ultimate reality shift. You aren't fighting for your desk, you're fighting for your future. Human behavior is predictable. People in HR want to go home at 5 p.m. having had the least stressful day possible. If you make yourself a high-stress contact through your meticulous documentation and your knowledge of policy, they will look for the path of least resistance to satisfy you. This isn't about being mean. It's about being professional and lethal. You are playing the game of social dynamics where the person with the most documentation wins. Perception is everything. If you look like someone who has a lawyer on speed dial, you will be treated with a level of respect and caution that the nice employee will never experience. It's a cynical truth, but in the corporate world, respect is often just another word for fear of consequences. The truth is, your work family is a commercial fiction. Your boss is a manager of resources, and HR is the auditor of those resources. The moment you stop being a net positive to the balance sheet, either because of your salary, your attitude, or the legal risk you represent, the institution will move to eject you. This is why you must never offer HR your unfiltered truth. You only offer them the truth that serves your strategic goals. You don't tell them you're looking for a new job. You don't tell them you're unhappy with the CEO's vision. You don't give them any ammunition that can be used to categorize you as not a culture fit. You remain a polite, productive, and perfectly documented enigma. You use the system as long as it's useful to you, and you protect yourself because nobody else is going to do it. The ending of this narrative is about your own awareness. Look at that HR poster again, the one about empowering our people. Now, look at the reality of how the last layoff was handled, or how the last whistleblower was treated. The gap between the corporate script and the corporate reality is where your power lies. Once you see the gap, you can no longer be manipulated by the script. You are the only person truly invested in your human resources. Your talent, your time, and your mental health are your resources, and you are the only one who can manage them. HR is just the department that manages the company's human assets. Don't ever confuse the two. Reflect on this. If the company truly cared about your well-being, they wouldn't need a department to manage the risk of your presence. The existence of HR is the ultimate proof that the relationship is transactional. Once you accept that, the uncomfortable truth becomes a liberating truth. You stop looking for validation from a bureaucracy and start looking for it in your own results and your own network. You are a sovereign agent operating within a system. And your job is to exit that system with more value than you entered with. HR is just a hurdle on the track, not the referee. Now that you know who they actually protect, you can stop expecting them to protect you. You can start protecting yourself. And in the high-stakes game of professional survival, that is the only human resource that actually matters. The knot in your stomach can disappear now because you aren't a victim of the system anymore. You're the one who knows how it actually works. Awareness is the only safety you'll ever find in the corporate world. Now, go into that meeting tomorrow, keep your documentation close, your emotions closer, and remember, you aren't there to find a friend. You're there to manage a transaction, and you're going to be the one who comes out on top.